Hello and welcome to the Move Well, Live Well podcast.
We are your hosts, Antonio Capasso and Dave Fell. The aim of this podcast is to motivate, inspire, and educate the masses, giving practical tips and golden nuggets on how to get moving and live a healthy and fulfilled life.
This podcast is for anybody who's wanting to exercise but struggles to get started or to make it stick. It's for anybody who's chasing goals but never seems to feel satisfied, or simply anyone who wants to live a healthier and happier life.
As a licensed sport and exercise psychologist, I use my knowledge of human behaviour and psychological theory to help both everyday people and Olympic level athletes achieve their performance and lifestyle goals.
I'm an online coach and I've built a platform through providing healthy and budget recipes and practical exercise tips to as many people as I can. I'm not the biggest, leanest, strongest or fittest coach, but I do pride myself in being the most well balanced. We want you to take away so many golden nuggets from this podcast that you'll have to eat them with milk.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Move Well, Live Well podcast. We are on to episode 7 now, I believe.
Come on.
Absolutely cooking through these. Yeah, the one we've gone for now, and I think it's something that is really tied to the root of the Move Well, Live Well podcast, is training for longevity versus training for aesthetic. And I think it's a really nice carry on. It's almost like we kind of know what we're doing. A really nice carry on from last episode, which is dealing with setbacks and not getting thrown off and trying to have that growth mindset and looking at the bigger picture and zooming out. Links really nicely to today, and I think the question we've got for you to mull over and think in your head is, would you rather look good at the beach for one summer or still be able to run around your grandkids at 70?
Yeah, and I think that's obviously a really important question to ask. And, you know, what we're talking about when we turn it in terms of aesthetics, you know, this is mostly focused on how you look, losing body fat, gaining muscle and focusing mostly on your composition, whereas training for longevity, we're actually thinking about, you know, obviously strength and muscle does come into a lot of that, but also thinking about our fitness, thinking about our mobility and our overall health as well, because I know I definitely got stuck into the training for aesthetics camp when I was kind of going in that teenage, and it's probably becoming more and more common in the social media based society. You know, I'm not sure if you've seen the post on social media where it's like comparing a 2000, you know, superhero to now. There's a vastly difference in terms of the body image expectations within society. So we want to really talk about that today, to help you guys reframe that mindset, and also, you know, hopefully we inspire you to train for that longevity. And we're not saying either is right or wrong and you shouldn't be doing any one or the other. We just want to talk to you a little bit about the differences today. So, you know, you'll learn the key differences, you'll learn about how to balance both, and you'll be able to understand which approach might be able to suit you better right now and in the future as well.
Yeah, 100%. And again, a big one as well, is we'll probably relate to this. I know for myself, I think I've spoken about before, that I was obsessed with chasing aesthetic, and it's a hard thing to let go, and it's a hard, almost like identity shift to make, where you're like, you're no longer just going to base yourself off whether you've got like some abs coming through or whether you can see your obliques. It's now about actually, you know, do I just feel good in like day-to-day life? And, you know, aesthetics are very much looking at the short-term motivation. They're appearance-based. A lot of them they're very influenced by the external world versus the internal world. Yes, you might have body confidence, but I know just from speaking to a lot of mates who are sort of self-diagnosed gym bros, is that, you know, when the pump wears off, that body dysmorphia or slight hints at body dysmorphia starts coming in, and you realize that actually maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. And again, the idea and the downside of you know, pushing really hard for this short-term goal is that, well, most likely you're going to hit a setback. Like we said last episode, you're going to hit a setback. Life's going to get in the way unless you are you know, a full-time elite athlete, and even then they've got to worry about injury, and that's why they work with coaches who will set like really good long-term goals. Then, you know, going for this aesthetic-based short-term, I want to look good when I'm in Ibiza in 6 weeks' time, is probably not realistic, and it's going to factor into stuff such as burnout, which I know we spoke about last episode. We'll come on to it in this episode. And a real big one for me is that idea that when you're chasing external validation, you're then losing yourself and you're losing your why and actually what really matters in life, because you're like constantly trying to adapt and mold yourself to how others are perceiving you or how someone else might perceive you. And I think if there's only one fact that people take away from today, and it's one of my favorite things to say, is that there are multiple yous in everyone's mind. Okay, the way that we interact with someone and the way we were on that day, the way they've perceived us, their own biases, their own unconscious biases or conscious biases that they have because of their experience in life, mean that they will view you in that situation in a different way to how you will perceive yourself. So ultimately, rather than wasting time on your energy trying to make sure that everyone likes you, actually, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can justify your actions and you can and you have a clear understanding of who you are and what your goals are and what they are for and the purpose they serve, then that's the best thing you can do, and it's with the healthiest for a mind you can be in. Because ultimately, as long as you can look in the mirror and be happy with yourself, that is all that matters.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and something that really kind of like struck out to me, you know, as you were speaking there, is I remember this quote, and again, it's been amazing for my self-confidence, is like, confidence is not, you know, getting everybody to like you. It's actually just being yourself and thinking, I like myself, and if others like me, then great, but if not, then that's kind of a them problem. And I think once you kind of, you know, come away from this trying to please everybody, then that is a big shift in mindset that you have. And as long as you know you're sticking to your values and your core principles, then you can be confident in whoever you are, whether people like you or not. And also something that you touched on there is, you know, having body confidence and actual confidence in maybe a work setting or a social setting is two completely different things. And yes, there is obviously a large overlap, but I know that, you know, my confidence in terms of how I interact with people doesn't rely on how shredded I am at that given time. It relies on other things, how nice I can be to a person, if I can make them smile, if I can listen to them, make them feel valued. And, you know, so this is kind of why we need to come away from this solely based aesthetics point of view. Well, actually, we want to be more of like a holistic, you know, in terms of how we are, how we interact with other people and how we interact with ourselves.
Yeah, I really like that point where you put it back to the core values, but then also relating it to the different different worlds in which we live in. I often view it as almost like the different bubbles. Like you've got your family and the way I interact with my family, that's one little bubble. I've got my friends, I've got the people I work with as another bubble. But what it reminded me of is that I had a client, is one of my favorite clients I've had over the years, who was like a big corporate baddie, if you can say it that way. He'd definitely not like me put it that way, but like he was a CFO for a very successful company. I remember the first session sort of being a bit like intimidated, a bit like, oh my god, because obviously I know the background of the clients I work with. I was like, oh my god, like this could be really intimidating. He's going to be really intense, and he was completely the opposite. He was just so open and wanting to understand my knowledge and learn from what I could help him with and support him through. And actually, what it came down to was he realized that in sport, the value that he needed to pull on was humility, and actually being able to just laugh at himself and not take himself too seriously, so that actually outside of that corporate space, he still had that part of his identity, the guy that could joke and could laugh and could just get along with some mates when he was playing, in his case it was tennis, versus the guy that needs to help run a company and be this very authoritative figure. So it served him a real purpose, and that's why, again, it's that way of like, it doesn't matter how other people are going to perceive you in that moment, because it's what you want to get out of it and the person that you're wanting to portray in that environment.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and you know, it's good for him to recognize that as well, in order to go forward. So, I mean, Tony, I'm sure, like me, you've struggled with training for aesthetics in the past. So I guess give us a little bit about kind of your fitness journey, like when your mental health's been really good, when you maybe hasn't been so good on this journey of training for aesthetics, and what that kind of looks like now, and how you've shifted that focus.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I went to university weighing like 63, 64 kilos. So I was never this big beefy lad.
Strongest gust of wind will blow you away.
Yeah, literally. And I decided that the sport I wanted to play was American football. And so when you are first year of uni, 18, you're trying to like play this sport that I had like no prior knowledge of how to play. I just thought it seemed cool. I got along with some of the people that were there, but I was this little twig. Suddenly, coaches were saying, "Mate, you need to put weight on. You've got to eat. You need to eat way more." But I had like 60 quid a week that I was trying to like live off and like figuring out even just how to be an adult. And then I was trying to like gym. I was trying to train. Like, wouldn't say like my mental health was nowhere near like really bad on the floor, but it definitely fed into this like perception of like I need to look a certain way so that I can like play the sport like successfully. And I remember, and it took so much of my mental capacity, and I was always worried about it. I was always stressing about, have I eaten enough? Have I had some food? And I couldn't really afford to like be doing these big shops. Equally, probably could have afforded to go on less nights out, but
They never part ways.
yeah. But yeah, and I come from an athletics background as well. So I come from running cross countries and 800 meters to suddenly trying to be an American footballer. And by the end of the season, actually, we won the Bucks Premier League, so we were like the best team that year, which was amazing. And I got Rookie of the Year, which was like an incredible achievement for me in terms of how I feel about myself and being proud. And I gained like 2 kilos that whole year, so I was still way under. I think like they were saying I needed to be sitting around between 70 to 80 kilos. But I was still way under. And again, I think that really emphasized to me, in the ideal world, I'll be bigger. And of course, like by the time it came to my last year at uni, I was, just because naturally you get older, and I was, able to gym regularly. But that like, just by realizing at the end of the year, I'm not even weighing like 70 kilos yet. And I'm already being viewed on the team as someone that they respect and someone they want around and someone that they can see having a good career in American football. Like it really helped shift my perspective, and again, like it took a lot for that like 18-19-year-old kid to realize that actually it's not just about being muscular.
Yeah, so I think in that way, that's great learning in terms of how big you are or whatever it is doesn't necessarily mean how effective you are in that sport. I mean, for me, I was the complete opposite. So I was very overweight as a teenager growing up. I was kind of like the fat kid that they're stuck in goal, even though I absolutely loved like any sport and playing sport. But I really, really struggled with my body image. I actually remember, going to sleep like in tears a few nights because I was literally just like so wanting to change and not be overweight anymore. And for a teenager, that's what I experienced then, and that's without Facebook and Instagram and all this. So I can only imagine how bad it is for some people these days. But I mean, you'll know yourself how harsh lad banter could be. So after a few years of that, I really decided it was time to change. And for me, I remember so clearly having in my kitchen in my family house just a chart. Didn't eat breakfast, and then for lunch I'd have a cup of soup, 1 slice of wholemeal bread and an apple in the afternoon, and then for dinner whatever my mum was eating. Obviously as a coach now I can understand that definitely put me in a calorie deficit, probably eating nowhere near the amount of protein that I should have done, and it was a way too aggressive deficit, but ultimately it kind of was doing that. And I thought again I had to run every day, and that's because of this kind of social expectation. And looking back, that is such a terrible way to kind of get to that, deal with these problems that I was personally suffering with body image. So it took me many, many years to kind of unlearn that and to come to a place where I was, happy with that. And then coming out of my teenage years, going into adult life, I obviously, just from a personal point of view, really researched about how to do it in effective and proper way. I need to make sure that I'm strength training, so I'm not losing a load of muscle, because I would have been eating chronically under eating on protein. So you kind of think about how to come about these healthy ways. And then as I've got older and into adult life, I've realized, actually, that was a really unhealthy way to do that. And then I got into the gym, and that was probably the period that I was most focused on aesthetics. But then I was quickly like, well, if I'm not shredded all year round, then my self-worth is then tanking. And it's taken me a lot of years to kind of understand, well, actually, the only person that cares if I'm dick skin shredded is me or other gym bros. Like, literally no one cares. My family certainly do not care. My girlfriend actually prefers me with that little bit of extra body fat layer, because that you know says to her and to other people as well. It's like, we can go out, we can, you know, get a takeaway, have a Ben and Jerry's in an evening and not be too stressed about it. And I'm not saying that happened overnight. That was over the course of many years about shifting mindset. But now I'm so much happier, even though I am less shredded and have less abs than I did before. But that hopefully kind of demonstrates that everybody kind of has these feelings about wanting to train for how they look. But ultimately, we'll try and, you know, find that a little bit of balance. So yes, we want to look great, we want to have self-body confidence and all that kind of stuff, but we don't need to take it to the extreme in order to get there, because that's ultimately what's going to lead to unhappiness.
Yeah, and also it's reflect. I mean, I feel like I say this every episode, but reflecting on, why do you feel like if you look this way, it's suddenly going to make up for everything else? Like, why is just this one thing going to fix everything else? And also, like, how are you perceiving these people? And like, have you had interaction? Have you had conversations with them? Because I know for sure that the people that I think are in the best shape, actually, like, they can't see it themselves, like, because they're constantly chasing more and chasing more and chasing more, because that's what starts happening. I've even experienced myself, and actually I've looked back on pictures and thought, God, you were in great shape. But I was like, at that time, all I was thinking about was like, oh, I'm still too like skinny, like my abs just look like skinny abs, I need to put more weight on. And like, I still have those thoughts sometimes, but now I'm like, actually, doesn't matter. Like, I've got so much more going on, and actually no one has just changed how they're interacting with me because I've like not been able to engage in the gym as much as I was before. So it's like having that reflection and being like, well, what is this feeling that I'm trying to chase, and why do I feel like this? And yes, getting into a better form of shape might be good, and again, it will show to you that you can be disciplined. It's a way of being able to show to the world that you're someone who's disciplined and you're someone that's hardworking, but it's also not the only way, right? So let's not get caught up in this and really tie your identity to that. And equally, it comes with, if this is something that you've found in yourself, like, again, be empathetic with yourself, because, you know, it's very quick to tie identity into stuff like this. The example I'll give, just moving away from body image, is, you know, running a 10k PB feels great because you get such like everyone says, oh my God, that's fantastic, that's so impressive, wow, look at you go, like, and suddenly you see that people are perceiving you in this light, and you want to chase that feeling again. And then naturally, well, we think, well, if I've done it, if this worked one time, now if I do it again, it's going to work another time. And this is very quickly how we can start leading on to things such as burnout, very quickly lead on to things such as then having like an over-identification with that sport or with bodybuilding or image. So it's just something to be wary of. And yeah, I guess my key message here is just take a step back, reflect, think to yourself or speak to yourself, what is it that this is trying to make up for in myself?
Yeah, 100%. And so when someone says then, Tony, training for aesthetics, what does that mean for you? What does that look like for you?
In which way, sorry?
So if someone says, okay, I want to train for purely aesthetics, I want to look the best possible way that I can in 6, 8, 12 months, weeks, whatever it is. What does that kind of training to you? What kind of mindset are they displaying? Where does their validation come from?
Mm-hmm. So for me, my obviously the first question would be like, why? Like, why are you doing this? And if it is a lot of extrinsic motivation that they're talking about, that they're relating to, then the thing that I'm gonna say to them is, well, how long have you wanted this? And actually, how consistent is that motivation? because so often we'll go on social media, we'll see it, we think, oh, I want to look like that, and I want people to see me looking like that, or it might be that perhaps you just want a bit more success in the dating world, right? I'm like, okay, this is all external gratification that you're chasing here, but equally, motivation will come and go and it will wane very quickly. So if it's shallow and if it's surface level, going back to that first episode, you're gonna run out really quickly. The other thing to think about there is you give a 6-week example, right? Well, I'm assuming that people have got a little bit of common sense, so they might not be miles off it. But the first thing I think about there is, well, 6 weeks is very rigid, right? And it's often because they've got a holiday coming up, okay? Fine. But then 6 week, it's rigid. It's probably not the most achievable thing in the world. How are you actually going to be able to fuel yourself for this? Well, what are the barriers that are happening right now? And, are you willing to make the sacrifice to try and overcome these? And also, what if it doesn't pay off?
Want to become a stronger, better, and faster runner? You don't need another cookie cutter program. You need a coach. Cooper is a coach in your pocket, and they provide real structure, real expertise, and real accountability. And because you're a Move Well, Live Well listener, you'll get an extended 2-week free trial when you sign up and use the code MOVEWELL on the app. Cooper, not a plan, a coach.
Right? What if you end up on this holiday in 6 weeks' time and you haven't been able to stick to this unrealistic plan? How are you then going to feel on holiday?
That's it. And that's when people, and we can often see extreme dieting methods, cutting out carbs or doing like really extended periods of fasting, or just chronically under eating on calories, doing juice cleanses, all that kind of stuff. Beasting yourself 6 times in the gym whilst you're underfeeding yourself, and that can lead to injury. So it's kind of, I guess, when we do see training for aesthetics, we can often take these, I guess, more extreme methods that we see, which can lead to injury, and it can lead to, bad self-worth. Because as Tony said, like, if you don't get there, well, all your self-confidence has been deriving from this fact that you want to look as lean as possible for this holiday or whatever it is. And, using pro bodybuilding as an example, it's quite often when the people get up on stage, they're actually in the worst possible shape that they could be physically and mentally. For a lot of women that do compete in the sport, they lose their menstrual cycle because they physically do not have enough body fat to survive childbirth. So, in a sport where we think about professional athletes, we'd like to think that on event day, they are the fittest, strongest, and most mentally stable that they could be. Well, actually, what we see in the bodybuilding world is the complete opposite. And these people are obviously training for the aesthetics, but actually on the event day, they are the worst physical state that they are in, although it looks different.
Yeah. And then another question and one to really think about is, look at that person. Don't just look at how they are physically looking. Look at their whole life. Look at their lifestyle. Look at their friendships. Look at what illnesses they have, what sacrifices they're making, and really think to yourself, do I want that life? Right? And I think he's an inspiration for loads of things, right? But Ronnie Coleman can't walk properly. And it's a sacrifice that he made and was willing to make, but it's not a sacrifice that I would like to make. And yeah, I've got to be cool to have quads like him. But there's sacrifices. We call them choice points. I think I spoke about a few episodes ago, right? There's a choice you have to make, but then there's consequences to that choice. And it's think about your whole life. Think about what looking like that would really benefit and bring to you. But then what are you going to have to let go to let that happen? Because that's when it then becomes real. It's like, I can no longer go and engage in this activity. I can no longer go and do this. That's what we need to start thinking about. What is, yes, 6 weeks time you want to look like that? Great. But, are you going to do that consistently long term, right? Just because you look good in that picture, but then actually because you've set such a high standard for yourself for 6 weeks, a bit like if we think about if we think about like a marathon training block, right? Once you've done that marathon block, are you still running that much? Are you still, probably not drinking as much alcohol? No, because you want your lifestyle back again. So it's that idea, the same with body image. Well, if you're going to make all these sacrifices, long term, are you still going to be doing that? Probably not. You're probably going to want to just, enjoy. You're going to want to treat yourself because you've hit this goal. You feel like you deserve it. And now you're going to find that you're actually back to square one again. So where's the longevity here? Where's that long term benefit you're getting?
Well, that's it. And it's kind of this idea there's no easy wins. It's always, what's the trade-off for that? So again, using myself an example at the start of the year, 10 weeks, no takeaways, tracking calories, no alcohol, got in the best shape that I've been in this year. But actually, if you look how I am now, the abs have definitely gone. I think they said by probably a month after I stopped, I was back drinking again. But for me, ultimately, like my balance is way better than it was at the start of the year. And yes, it's obviously good to have those periods where you're locked in and you maybe do move towards a more aesthetic-based goals. But actually, to your point, okay, what do I have to give up that? And am I prepared to do that for the rest of the year? The answer was a very, very simple no, I'm not. I would rather be drinking with my friends. I'd rather go out for date nights with my girlfriend. I'd rather have these experiences than have my abs, and I think that's and again, it took me many, many years to kind of get over this and have this mindset. But yeah, thankful for where we are now and hopefully, can help you guys understand that as well. So obviously we've spoken about training for aesthetics there and why people do it. So on the flip side then, so let's talk about, okay, so training for longevity, what does that look like? Why do people do that and how?
Yeah, so training for longevity includes in the name, right? We're training for that long-term goal, the long-term benefit that you want to get from life. So it's that shifting the focus on purely external gratification or how we might be perceived by others to actually then internally, how am I going to feel in myself, right? And looking at things such as performance. So like, how will this enhance my day-to-day life? And not much day-to-day life in the next few weeks, my day-to-day life for the next 5-10 years. Like, is it going to be the case that like I can, I often think to myself, like I'm always, my girlfriend hates me because I'm always like, whenever we're commuting around London, I hate it. I hate being on the tube. So I'm always like walking up the escalator, but I think, thank God, like I can do that. So I can get myself out of an environment that I don't enjoy quicker. Right. But it's like really stupid, simple things like that. Like, how is it going to benefit me and make me feel so much better? Am I going to feel like I have more energy? What's the confidence within myself going to look like? What does that mean for me long term? How can I also fit this long-term goal in around my lifestyle more? So it's less of just like I'm going to hit this goal by here. It's more of like I'm now going to actually shape my life to make sure that I'm hitting this long-term goal more regularly or consistently. And then how can I, make sure that the people I'm surrounding myself with have similar values and actually looking at that side of things as well. So that, in the long term, it's actually, I know that people aren't going to judge me because I've no longer got abs, because they're actually going to turn around and say, no, like he matches our values around what we want from health.
100%, and agree with everything you said there, and to kind of take that and put it in the simplest form. For me, it's so I can wipe my ass when I'm 90 years old, or even I might not live that long, but being able to do that, and so many of the movements that we see in the gym, like a squat, being able to get up off the sofa without having to use a walking stick, or being independent enough, having healthy shoulder health so you can reach something off the top shelf, and ultimately that's what we should all be aspiring to do, because how you spend those last 10 years will be very much determined by how you spend the 30, 40 in before that time. And training for longevity as well, for me, is obviously strength training is part of that. And as I've said, there's overlaps with training for aesthetics. Obviously cardio is really, important in that as well. But, instead of to do PBs so I can impress this person or whatever it is, but it's to increase heart health, to go up the stairs without being out of breath so you can play with your grandkids or whatever it is. So once we can kind of understand that we're working towards that, I think that is such a more powerful why than so I can get more likes on this Facebook post, or so, the gym bros you know, like when we're tensing or whatever, that it looks better. So that for me is what it get it, and you know, reframing the mindset to have that, I think, is important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a difficult balance between like body image is a good sign that you are healthy,
Yeah.
but there's extremes in both ends for body image, right? There's the people that are like super overly muscular, and I think, well, long term that's not sustainable, and equally you're probably pushing your limit a lot, right? And then there's the one where it's like, okay, but potentially you're a bit too sedentary, right? So body image is a good indicator in terms of health, and maybe that you need to make a change, but it's not everything, right? How you're actually feeling inside is way more important than external. There was someone that did a really good Instagram reel where she was like, I am like lifestyle fit, not aesthetic fit, and she was doing these crazy and she was doing these crazy like CrossFit workouts, and she didn't look like your standard sort of influencer CrossFit person that's like shredded. Like she had a little bit of weight on her, but the way that she was moving was so athletic, and the movement she was able to do was so athletic. I'm like, that is it. Like, that's the epitome of like, you've got confidence in yourself, you're able to move, you've got energy, but you're not having to look a certain way to do that. And I think, yeah, it was really key and really nice to see.
I think that's a perfect example. And again, that's, you know, it's showing that you are athletic, but also, you know, not determined by or not discouraged if you don't look a certain way. And I think for me and a partner as well, I think that's so much more attractive, and being able to have that balance, you know, rather than just be like, oh, no, I can't really go out, or you're going to take a Tupperware box out for date night or whatever it is. And I'm not saying don't ever do that, because there are times to do that. But I think as we look overall, I think, you know, for me, that's much more in line with my personal values as well.
Yeah, 100%. And again, right, we're coming back to values. So for longevity, it is that, you know, reflecting what's important to you, what are your values, and looping that in so that, you know, when you're thinking about and you're having that dilemma between, oh, I want to look this way, but actually I said I'm then going to have to let go of this. Well, what did you say your values were? Because ultimately in the long term, that is what matters more, and what is going to matter more to you in the future. There's also a really nice sort of fun fact that I discovered earlier in the year from this really good psychologist who informed me that persona is just the Latin word for mask. So when we're thinking about that in fitness, and you might be like, that's a bit of a reach into it, but when we think about it in fitness, right, just because you are muscular, okay, and you've got this persona as someone that's a muscular person, well, like, what's that masking, right? Is that actually giving you more confidence, or are you just trying to prove to other people that you are this fit, confident, strong person, when actually on the inside, nothing's changed? It's just that you've now put on this mask.
Yeah, I think that's great. And yeah, I didn't know that with the Latin word. So we've obviously spoken a lot about there, like how that looks like and the impact that it can have on your mindset. But let's move more, I guess, towards practical tips for our listeners. And then in terms of how they can shift away from an aesthetics-based training plan, what does a more balanced longevity training plan look like?
Yeah, so I think just the first thing in terms of longevity is understanding, for this goal, are the sacrifices that you're going to be making something that you can actually live up to in the long term? Like, is this shift going to force you to let go of too many things that you truly value? That means that either you're probably going to slip off path, or after hitting that goal, you're no longer going to be living anywhere near that type of lifestyle, and you're probably going to put yourself back to square one. Yeah,
and I think a question that I always ask my clients, and this goes for both exercise and nutrition, is that, can you see yourself doing a certain diet for the rest of your life? Because if the answer to that is no, then you are already setting yourself up to failure. Like, if you are doing, say, the carnivore diet, yes, you could achieve amazing results within a short period of time. Because if you're chucking out all processed foods, all the foods that you love, all carbs, your probably calories are going to decrease as part of that. But when you're at your kid's buffet, and then you just want to relax and have a bit of, you know, party food, beige buffet, all that kind of stuff.
Dinosaur nuggets. Huh?
You know, I love them. You know, if you can't stick to that during those times, then ultimately you are setting yourself up to fail, because there's always going to be a period where you give into that craving and you have it, and then you've already set yourself up to failure. So the exact same thing comes down to it with exercise. So can you genuinely see yourself exercising that way long term? So for me, and again, I used to be the proper gym bro, 5-day split, arms, chest, back, shoulders, legs, like that. And then now I'm kind of like gym 2-3 times a week. I absolutely love sport. Volleyball is something that I'm getting into right now. I'm absolutely loving, you know, bit of volleyball, bit of badminton, bit of tennis, and then some running in around that. And for me, if someone was to say, can you see yourself doing that for the rest of your life? Well, absolutely I can, because I'm less focused on the gym and how I look, but actually just doing stuff and doing exercise because I love it, because it's social, and because it really just makes me want to get out and do it.
Yeah, 100%. Like for myself, I'm going to try and get into volleyball, because Dave's doing a Tuesday night volleyball, which I'm trying to keep myself free for, because it is generally really fun. But like again, right, that's just social, right? That's probably won't be. I don't think we're going to be trying to get into TGB or anything like that. Like we're just going to be right playing in the park with some friends, having a laugh. And again, like I want to stay in shape so I can continue doing stuff like that for the rest of my life. But yeah, it's like the running for me. It's a huge social thing. That like when I moved to London, I wanted to run so that I could get back into running and feel fit in that way, but also be surrounded by like-minded people to help keep me in check, so I can stay that way. So, you know, running's going to stay the same. And then I've gymmed fairly consistently since I was 16, 17, and I'm still going to keep doing it. Am I going to be trying to go 5-6 times a week? Unlikely. What I would like to be doing is going like 3, maybe 4 times a week. And that to me is very realistic with the lifestyle that I currently envision. And it might be that changes, you know, if I have kids or if the work increases in demands, but actually it's quite a realistic outlook on life, I think. Yeah, I think another big practical tip is to avoid the extremes.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that's the kind of the main message we're trying to get across there. The crash diets, right? The overtraining. Let's not do it.
That's it. And it's always that question about what can you realistically fit into the week. And I really kind of love what you said there. And, you know, even as to, I guess, like coaches, people that absolutely love training and exercise, even we've had the shift away from, you know, going 5 times a week to now going 2 or 3 or whatever it is. So if you're out there and you've barely trained, you've never stepped inside a gym, well, just know that it's okay to feel that way. And actually, we're not saying you need to go 5 times, because that potentially is going to lead to overtraining, but just whatever you can realistically manage. In an ideal world, we'd be doing some kind of strength training, some kind of cardio, and then hitting a step count throughout the week. So absolutely great if you can hit all those. But as we mentioned, do what you enjoy, push yourself, and just try and get a little bit better as the time goes on. Avoid the extremes. And ultimately, that's going to make the process a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, good. Another one for me is is actually trying to avoid getting hooked onto social media, viral posts and like messages that people end up getting hooked into, and actually read around the research that someone's putting out there, or just read into it yourself. I saw one that really made me laugh, because it was correct, but equally then people were like taking it like at face value. There was like a message going around like how many press ups you could do equated to how long a lifespan you were going to live. And so then people just like spamming press ups. And I was like, guys, the reason why you can do that many press ups is because you have like built up the muscle and have like built the fitness up. That means you can actually do press ups. It's not actually just doing a press up
equals life.
Yeah, like press ups don't equal life. It's like if you can do X amount of press ups, it suggests that you are this level of fit as a person. So it's like, don't get stuck into fad. That's what I was like, social media fads, and suddenly just start spamming this thing because like, people are doing it, so therefore it must be true. No, like look at the research around it and what it's actually suggesting. I'm 90 99% sure that they weren't just saying you have to do press ups and only press ups. I think it's more because it symbolizes that you are someone that can clearly carry your body weight.
Yeah. And that's the same with grip strength as well. There's strong correlation between grip strength and a longer life. But that doesn't mean you should go out and always focus on your grip strength. I guess the final tip from me would be to actually book stuff and train towards events. Because, yes, we've talked a lot about don't just train for the vanity metrics or anything like that. But, if running a 10K event, running a half marathon, running a full marathon, whatever it is, that doesn't have to be based wholly around aesthetics. That can be how you feel, enjoying the process, all of the other great things that we talked about in terms of, building up your self-confidence and self-worth through proving to yourself that you can do the hard things, that you can turn up for yourself. And that is a great way to build up that confidence. But having something in the calendar, being able to work towards something is a great way to obviously increase your fitness and prove to yourself that, and when we set these milestones and we can go out and achieve them, that is fantastic in terms of being able to stick to it long term, and then potentially, recognizing how far you've come, thinking about the next thing and being able to push towards new goals, because that's what keeps us, on track and always working towards something.
Yeah, good. And then have that longevity goal in the background of, well, if I keep doing these kind of small goals that I'm wanting to work towards, is it going to help me continue to live this long, happy, healthy lifestyle that is hopefully most people listen to this dream and what they want, as you said, 90, being able to actually still look after yourself and not having to rely on others, touch wood, not some form of illness that is uncontrollable comes around.
But yeah, so that's great. And just to reiterate, what we're saying is there is no right or wrong, and we're not saying train for longevity or just train for aesthetics. We're saying that there's a lot of overlaps there, and absolutely including both at certain times is what we should be, aiming to do. Just be aware of the pitfalls of just training for aesthetics, and obviously be aware that, shifting your mindset to around kind of like training because it makes you feel good, because it's realistic, because you can fit it into the week, is ultimately what's going to keep you on track longer term. And it's that long-term exercise, that vision, that is really going to, make sure that we are feeling good, both in ourselves and physically as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I was thinking there, people are going to call me a hypocrite if I don't say this. So I'm like, yes, you want to be in good shape and look good, but that can't be the only way in which you get your sense of self-worth, because then you will end up doing things such as burning out, you will end up being unhealthy, and you will try and do these unrealistic diets.
100%. And always remember, kebabs over abs any day. Okay, so we obviously always like to finish with a few questions for you guys to think about and take away with you, and then it's your quote this week, Tony. The questions we got for you this week is, if your body could no longer change how it looks, how would that impact your current training? And I think that's, really key in terms of this. Okay, so am I just going to the gym 5 times a week because that's how I want my body to look? Well, actually, do I enjoy it? I don't know. That's obviously for you guys to answer. But if that wasn't a factor and you prefer walking, doing stretching, playing sport, if that changes the way you train, then again, it's this question, how long can you keep that up for?
I'm not sure how much leg day I'll be doing.
Once a week is more than enough for me. Okay. When you picture yourself in 20, 30 years from now, what do you want your body to do? And what are the daily habits that you're doing to make sure you can do that?
Nice.
And finally, are you chasing an image for others, or are you building a future you that you will like the look of? And again, this is a question that for you guys to answer yourself. We can't tell you either way, but just something to think about. And always think, 80-year-old Dave, Tony, insert your name, would they be happy with the way that you're training now? Can you do it long term? And is that going to lead to the life that your older self is going to want to leave? So those are the questions for you. Hit us with your quote.
Cool. Quote for today's episode and I think it relates to it really nicely, is it won't happen overnight, but if you quit, it won't happen at all. I think it's a really powerful message, because it's that idea again of longevity, right? Do something that you won't notice the change instantaneously, but over a long period of time, you're definitely, if you actually take the time to reflect on how far you've come, you'll see that complete shift in the person that you are and the person that you've started becoming, because you've just stayed true to this realistic goal that's something that isn't going to be all consuming for 6 weeks, but it's unrealistic and you're going to end up quitting it. Just stay patient, stay accountable, and just stay on track, and again, do something that you're going to be able to keep motivated on, and I guarantee you'll start noticing that shift.
Love that. Absolutely love that. You guys can't fail. You can't fail. Okay, another fantastic episode. I think we are already looking forward to next week's episode. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with someone that needs to hear this. Maybe it's your gym bro, maybe it's someone else. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
Cheers, everyone.